Okay, so we'll get this party started. I'll do my intro, and then we're going to dive into today's topic. Here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today, he's not a repeat offender. He is a serial offender now. His name is Jonathan Small. I think this is the sixth time you have been on the podcast. And today we are going to talk about what is good podiatry, which I think is a good topic. So Jonathan, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me on again, Tyson. Yeah, it's great to be here. Always good to chat with you about podiatry and what it can achieve for the patients and where the profession is heading, really. So thanks again.
No, I think we might have to start calling this the Jonathan and Tyson show.
Somebody did mention that the other day to me.
Well, it's one of those things, though. I think if somebody has a good message to share and it's a good topic, then it wouldn't bother me if they're on 20 times, as long as it's new and it's fresh and the people that are listening to it are going, yes, I got something from that episode. But I know there's certain guests on that may cover a particular topic, and there's only so many ways that you can talk about that same topic. So, but no, I've had a few guests that have been on a couple of times. So Patrick McEnany in the USA in Chicago, he's been on 3 times at least, and he'll be back again because he's been growing his businesses. And every time he seems to add another 3 businesses on, I go, come on, tell me how you managed to do that. So Jonathan, we're going to talk about what is good podiatry. Tell me, what is good podiatry? This could be a short episode. It could be one line.
It could be, but I'm not going to deliver it in one line. Am I? We're going to chew the cud about it, I think.
Yes.
So let me tell you where it's come from, first of all. So I spend a lot of time in public forums on Facebook, and where people have said, oh, they saw a podiatrist and this happened and it didn't work, and so they've gone to physio or gone to surgery or whatever. And I keep saying to them about seeing a good podiatrist, not just any old podiatrist, but a good podiatrist, and get good podiatry. And I don't really define what that good podiatry is. And I thought this was an ideal opportunity to look at that and to really get to grips with what good podiatry is. And I think there's several aspects to it, really. I think in the most overriding aspect of it is whereby you put the patients first. And I use very often for myself the child or the mother test. If it was your own child being seen by a podiatrist or your own mother being seen, what would you expect from the podiatrist? What would their podiatry experience be like, in order that they can feel like they've had the best level of care possible? Because you want the best level of care possible for your child or for your mom or for your dad, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but the funny part is my wife always says to me, oh, geez, I wish you'd treat me as good as you treat your patients sometimes. How come whenever your patients need an appointment, you can get them in straight away, but I want something done? And you go, oh, hang on, I've had a really busy day. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is talk about feet when I get home. So
yeah.
But I do know what you mean. Yeah. If my daughter had a particular problem, for example, a certain injury, how would I? And it was serious. It wasn't just her having a whinge or can you do this for me? And not saying that she whinges. If it was a serious problem, you're thinking, okay, how would I treat her? And to me, that is how you should be treating your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it comes down to for me is about tools in the toolbox, and that actually the more tools you can offer your patients to fix their problem, the more overall the experience for the patient is going to be better for them, because they're going to have more choice of options, basically. Yeah. If you're a one-trick pony, then that's all they're going to be offered, and that might not suit them or their expectations. Whereas if you can offer them lots of treatment options for their condition, then you're going to be able to manage their expectations much better. And the old adage, isn't it? If all you've got is a hammer in your toolbox, then everything you see is a nail.
Yeah,
because
good point.
You're just going to hit everything with your hammer. So one of the forums I'm in is plantar fasciitis forum, and that's very much where I hark on about this good podiatry, because unfortunately what seems to happen here in the UK is, in the NHS, you know, we have the National Health Service here, is that they see a podiatrist on the NHS and they'll get offered or get provided with orthotics. And that's it. There's no other tool in the toolbox with NHS very often in a lot of areas, or it doesn't seem to be what's communicated from the patients anyhow. Don't feedback that they've had any rehab or had discussion about the risks and benefits with regard to steroid injections or been offered comprehensive individualized treatment plans. It seems to be that it's whatever's been commissioned for that department to provide is all that's provided. And I do advocate that actually good podiatry has lots of tools in their toolbox for heel pain, for instance. So they'll have access to shockwave, steroid, orthotics, rehab, mobilizations, manipulations, laser therapy, all sorts of tools that could be useful to the patient, and also not just treating them when they could actually be doing stuff for themselves at home. So whether that's doing some strapping, and I know you've got a really good strapping video on YouTube that's been very successful, that patients can use, and that actually you're encouraging them to take responsibility for their own condition, and also when you see the patient, you're explaining to them all of the aspects that work together to create that issue around heel pain. There could be the biological aspects, the psychosocial aspects. It could be linked to their work situation, their activities, whatever it is. And spending the time with the patient to listen to them and listen to their expectations, I think, is a really crucial part of the care that good podiatry gives.
Yeah, I think something that sort of relates to what you're talking about, and I think where some podiatrists do not think about it, is, say, mechanic, for example. You've got, if you had a particular car, if you had a Porsche, for example, or say you had a really flash BMW, like someone like that, and but you had this really, really nice BMW, and you will usually take it to a certain type of mechanic. You won't go to the guy who's in the backyard that you turn up and there's a couple of old cars sitting in the yard with grass growing around the side of them. Does that happen in the UK? Do you have grass growing?
Yeah.
Only because it's cold over there. But you wouldn't take your car there, because as soon as you looked, you go, oh no, that is it looks like a really dodgy mechanic. And you hear people talk about dodgy mechanics or a dodgy carpenter or a dodgy builder, and then these backyard people. Now, it doesn't mean that somebody has a backyard mechanic shop can't be a very professional backyard mechanic either, but everybody knows of a bad electrician and a good electrician, a bad mechanic and a good mechanic. So to me, I think a lot of professions are the same. There's good podiatrists, and I would actually class it, there's some that are bad podiatrists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how they fly under the radar and do not get their ass kicked is just surprising me. I know one in particular, and dodgy as all hell, and it's still working. And you just sit there shaking your head, go, I do not know how.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a story the other day about podiatrists who charge low fees, and actually told a colleague who was working in the practice not to do too good a job on the patients, because they're only paying for a £12 treatment, not a expensive treatment, so you don't have to do as good a job. And that to me is absolutely appalling. You know, but you know, this episode wasn't about fees. It was really about just trying to do your best for your patients, but knowing that your best might not be the best for them. And I think that's something that we don't really grasp as professionals, is that actually we might not have all the tools that can help our patients, and we should be referring on. We should know our scope of practice, and you shouldn't just say to them, well, we've got 2 treatments available for verrucas, that's your choice. It should be, well, there's multiple choices available for verrucas. We offer 2 treatments, and the reasons we only offer those 2 are these reasons. But equally, you could go elsewhere and have these other treatments as well. so the patient can then make their informed decision, can't they?
Yeah, well, I just want to go back one step when you're talking about fees, about low fees. And I do think that's funny that that mentality, oh, I don't charge them very much, therefore the quality of treatment is also dumbed down. But I do know some people that charge low fees who actually give an exceptional service, and they should be charging a lot more than what they do.
Yeah.
But I do know this particular person or persons. There's been a few podiatrists over my career that I know I don't think are very good podiatrists. They've flown under the radar. I've never seen them doing any continuing education, never seen them at a conference. And they also charge very low fees. And the feedback from those patients when we'd see them was the quality of care was really poor. They were rushed through. Whatever was made from, if something was made, was substandard, but they also charge a low fee. So they actually have the mentality that because I don't charge much, I can give a shit service and it doesn't really matter because that's what they're paying for. I'm going, no, they're paying for podiatry care. And then that gets onto what you just said. If you don't have all the tools, then refer them on. So if somebody you believe needs shockwave and you don't have shockwave, or somebody needs low level laser and you don't have one, is find someone that you can work with that you can refer to.
Yeah, absolutely. I got my first laser to do unit 27 years ago, 25, 27 years ago now, and I got in touch with all the local podiatrists in the area to say, look, I've got this here. It's been shown to be useful in such and such cases. So if you want to refer your patients to me, for me to do that, I'm happy to refer them back. I'm not after stealing your patients for you. I want to help you get your patients better. And the negative response I got was absolutely unbelievable. And it's one of the things we advocate on Work Smarter Not Harder courses is actually we should be doing more referral within the profession. And by not referring in the profession, what happens is that patients then go outside of the profession and don't necessarily get as good a level of care that good podiatry can offer.
And they don't come back. And I think it's really important. I've spoken to a lot of podiatrists who say, I don't like biomechanics. I go, oh, okay. But then they still make orthotics. I'm going, hang on, you don't like biomechanics. You've already told me you don't like it. You've told me you don't understand it. Yet the patient got orthotics made by you, but you don't like it nor understand it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, if you were close and had a good relationship with another podiatrist that you know, like and trust down the road, who does like biomechanics, who is good at it, if you form that relationship and said to your patient, I'm going to send you to this person down the road, this is what they specialize in, I will guarantee there's something that you do that is better than them. And remember when I did my marketing workshop and I'm talking about your unique selling proposition, and it's like, what do you do that's better than your opposition? What does your opposition do that's better than you? And there's a middle ground, and it's like where you should be putting your time and effort for marketing and your education. And don't compete against a person who's so much better at you. And so you should be working together. So I think referrals within podiatry, I think one day it will happen. It's just needs a bit of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the other thing is that the whole image of podiatry improves. And if the image of podiatry improves, so does patient perception of podiatry improve, so do the outcomes improve. So and patients just will benefit so much more from everybody making that bit of effort. If you don't want to offer certain treatments, then absolutely refer on to somebody who can offer those treatments. The patients will still sing your praises. They'll still say, that's great. What a responsible practitioner that was. He referred me on for some specialist care. In the same way that when they go to their GP for initial consultation, then the GP says, okay, I'll refer you to a specialist now. It's exactly the same. It can happen in podiatry. And there's and as I said, everybody benefits from it. It's a win-win when that happens. Whereas if somebody tries to hold on to their patients, offering poor quality treatments or not the full scope of treatments, and doesn't manage the patient expectations and doesn't resolve their problems, then it's not helping anybody. It's not helping the patients. It's not helping the profession. It's not helping the podiatrists.
Yeah, well, this is a question that came up in the Spartans group just the other day, a little while back. And And the question was, yeah, when patients are, say, given orthotics, why don't, and the outcome for the orthotic is really poor. They don't, it could have not just they didn't work, but actually may have caused more problems. And why don't patients ask for a refund more often? Or the question, and it was sort of like, should podiatrists give a refund if their treatment? Now, I have my own opinion on it. That I won't say what my opinion is. People that have ever worked with me, they'll know what my opinion is, because I think there's so many other factors involved. It's not as simple as just giving somebody a refund. But it's when the podiatrist maybe has not done the right thing. Like I said, the person earlier, I don't like biomechanics. I don't like, I don't know how to make an orthotic, but they make an orthotic anyway.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm not going to say on the refund thing, because I say it's every individual circumstance. But to me, if all they've done is patients turned up with foot pain, they've been sold a pair of orthotics that hasn't solved their foot pain, there's been no discussion around the cause of that foot pain, what the treatment options are for that foot pain, how orthotics might be able to help with the resolution of that foot pain, but might need other things as well, then the patients are expecting a cure from orthotics if they're not careful. And then you're in a sticky situation, aren't you? Because if you've delivered something that hasn't dealt with their expectations, then you potentially, maybe it is appropriate that you would refund if you haven't managed to achieve what the patient's goal is. But if you sit with your patient to start with and you discuss with them about their expectations and you show them what the reality of it is, so maybe they've got a chronic problem that isn't going to be resolved with orthotics and needs a different sort of work, then and the timeline is different to what maybe the patient's initially expecting. As long as you discuss all that with the patient and then their expectations are all managed, then you're not going to have the complaints so much from the patient.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you probably find a lot of the podiatrists that listen to this podcast are good podiatrists. Because I actually think when in my head, when I think a opposite of good, bad, when I think of a bad podiatrist and podiatry images that come into my mind when somebody says, picture a bad podiatrist, just like picture a pink elephant, and one comes to mind, is I don't think that person or those podiatrists would actually listen to this podcast. So I think a lot of the podiatrists that actually listen to this podcast now are there going, yeah, I agree. Yeah. So for those that are listening to it, who are good podiatrists, how can they become better podiatrists? What would be your tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key things for me is knowing their limitations, so they recognise those areas that they don't have the skill set in, or as much skill set as others, and then they refer on, so that they're actually build up those network links, so that they get passed on appropriately, and they treat patients ethically. They don't provide healthcare based on the fear of losing the patient or greed to get as much from the patient as possible. It should be just managing their expectations, providing the most accurate and up-to-date, unbiased information available, and carrying out any treatments that are safe to carry out and that the patient's requested of them. I think that if they do all of those things, then they're going to do good podiatry. They're going to be good podiatrists.
So you think it's one of those areas where, once again, when I do the marketing workshops and I talk about what do you love doing in podiatry, and what you love doing, you should be doing more of that. And the areas of podiatry you don't like doing, you should be doing less of that or stop doing altogether. So for me, everyone knows I didn't like ulcers. So I would refer them on as fast as I could. As soon as I smelt them come through the door, you're gone.
Yeah. But as a choice, if you've got a choice, haven't you? You can either learn more about them, so maybe you did enjoy them more, or as you say, you refer on. What you don't want to be doing is sort of blagging it with the patient, giving them substandard service, and not pointing them in the best possible direction. Now, I get referrals from all sorts of people, from GPs, from physios, from other podiatrists, or health practitioners, all sorts. And it's really interesting to see the people who do referring, who probably sit there and thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I do good podiatry because I don't offer all the treatment options. But actually, they've shown themselves to be good podiatrists by referring on.
Well, it's no difference to a GP. You have, say, a minor surgical procedure that needs to get done. Now, they've got the choice. They can do that themselves in the surgery. And if they're very competent at doing it, and I know, oh, shit, I know, I bloody hit the microphone. I know my GP that I see, all of a sudden I had this like lump on the side of my neck. And he said, yeah, we've got to cut that out. I said, okay. I said, but you're going to send me on to get that done? He said, no, I can do that myself. He said, and he explained to me exactly what we're going to do. And I tell you, it was painless. He wouldn't let me film it though. I had my phone there. I wanted to do like a selfie while he was doing it, but he said no, for whatever reason. It would have been a great video, but he was competent at doing that. But then there's been other things when he was doing a check of my heart one day and he went, oh, that don't sound good. And straight away referred me on to a cardiologist. So I think in the medical profession, the doctors know the capabilities, they know their training, but then they know who the specialists are and why you should be seeing those specialists.
Absolutely. And I was similar. I was offered a vasectomy by my GP, or by a GP. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, don't I need a specialist to look after that important bit of tackle, you know?
Yeah.
You don't have to put it in the hands of somebody who's doing a job in GP sort of job. But actually, when it was explained to me, all the GPs refer to him to do the vasectomies, basically. So he was the specialist minor ops GP for vasectomies. So, you know, he's doing them day in, day out. Therefore, you know, he is a specialist, even though he's in the GP realm. And I think that's the same within podiatry, isn't it? I class myself as a generalist podiatrist, as you know, I'll treat everything, ulcers, biomechanics, verrucas, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I've definitely made sure my game is at a level that I can service the patients well across the board for all their conditions. Rather than serving them not so good across such a range. And you have to put in the hours with your CPD, you're learning your knowledge, you have to invest in the tools, and also still have the referral networks, because there will be the things that come through the door that are too specialist for you to deal with and do need referring on.
Yeah, and I think like over here, for your registration each year, you have to do a certain number of CPD hours. And I find it funny sometimes where I know some podiatrists are noting down every single hour they spend doing things because they just got to get up to their 20 hours or whatever it is in 3 different areas. And I'll be perfectly honest, I never used to write anything down. I didn't record anything. And the reason I didn't worry about recording anything down was because I did that much of it. All I had to do was go to my diary, open the page, and it would have where I was, when I was there, what I learned. I had notes in my book that every year I start a new book and I write all my notes down. I had that much stuff that I could just refer to when I needed to actually write it up. Now that may not be the right thing, but it just goes to show that when you're doing so much continual education for yourself because you want to get better, not because you have to do it, it's because you want to do it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting at the moment with the changing lives around COVID in the UK, is that we've not been able to do conferences, go on courses that we normally go on days out to do those things. So what happens is you work during the day and then you go online to a Zoom in the evening to do your CPD. So 2 or 3 evenings a week, there'll be a good CPD offering. And it's really interesting to see the availability of that free CPD that's available, but how few people really engage in all of that. Some will get lots of viewers, but others will have hardly any, and you'll think, well, hold on, this is a golden opportunity for you to improve your practice, learn more, be able to do more for your patients. But I understand why they wouldn't do it, because actually they've worked all day in their clinic and then they're coming home and doing their Zoom lesson in the evening. But they're no longer going on conferences to get that learning in. So I think I think you're absolutely right. If you're doing regular learning, you're doing that reflective practice, aren't you? You're always upping your game. You're always raising the bar for yourself, and therefore raising the bar for your patients.
Yeah.
And in so doing, you can achieve more for your patients. And then of course, what happens when you do that is you get those referrals, because people realise you're the person to go to with any difficulties. So I've had a couple of absolute A patients come through that were referrals from colleagues in the past couple of months. Both of which a podiatrist and in theory should be able to look after the patient themselves, but both of which recognise that actually they'd get better care if they came here. And that's great. They get sorted out by me, and they get said, go back and see that other patient podiatrist once I've sorted you out.
Yeah, I think the interesting part too about CPD is, I think sometimes people think, oh, it has to be endorsed by the association or the profession or the society to make it qualify. No, it doesn't. It's just, as long as you're doing it and you can and you got some benefit from it, and you can record it down and what your learnings were, and like you said, reflective learning, then it qualifies as CPD.
Absolutely.
And I've seen some people go, oh, I know I'm not going to do that because it's not endorsed by the association. It doesn't need to be endorsed by the association.
No. And this is where things like your Pod Legend podcasts, so much useful information. The classes of great quality CPD in there, and it's not accredited, but it's still some serious quality learning taking place if they listen to those.
Yeah, especially this episode. But I think this is the benefit where, when some people are in a group practice, for example, and they might have 2, 3, 4 podiatrists working in there. And I think it's important when you have a big group practice is getting together as a group and asking, what are your interests? And if you've got a particular person in your practice who loves peds, then when the patients come in, you try and direct them to that and try and create these like small little specialists within the practice on what is their area of interest, and keep sort of working on that.
I certainly see that the future of podiatry clinics are where it's multi-practitioner in the same location, offering the specialists and the generalist care to patients. It's the same with anything medical these days, isn't it? You just don't get solo dentists anymore, solo vets anymore. It's group practices, because then you're pulling up all that experience and knowledge in the same place for whatever comes through the door.
Yeah, I think it is difficult. There'll be some people listening to this, I'm sure, who are in small towns, little regional areas. They might be the only podiatrist. Yeah, I think of one place in particular. Oh, there's a lot of places in Australia that are very remote, but still have a decent population there. And there's just one podiatrist, and they don't have a chance to refer to anybody else. However, usually those podiatrists, and I've had some on this podcast, are very, very good podiatrists. They know that they have to learn because the town expects it from them, and that they can't refer somewhere. So they've been forced to learn more. So I think if they can do that in remote areas, which means they sometimes have to travel a long way to have previously gotten to conferences and events, if they're prepared to do it, people that are in capital cities or regional areas, there's no excuse not to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, it's easier, isn't it, if you're in a big area, to think, actually, I'll get patients through the door anyhow, because I'm not serving all the local community, being that solo practitioner, because there's others that could serve patients, and it's one of the things that I've noticed very much over here is around patient, especially at the moment, as we're coming out of lockdowns and stuff, is how every podiatrist seems to be saying they're inundated, they're really busy, they're booked up for months ahead. And I that just doesn't fit in well with me with what is good podiatry, because good podiatry is responsive podiatry. It's when a patient phones up and says, I've got an acute problem, you go, okay, I can fit you in 2 days' time to get that sorted out. You wouldn't expect your dentist, if you had a bad abscess, bad toothache, to say, oh, wait for 3 months before you can come and see me. It just doesn't happen. They offer a good quality service. And having these clinics that are booked up for months ahead doesn't fit well with what I envisage good podiatry to be.
Yeah, I suppose it depends though what type of clinic you have. So if you have a very generalized clinic, cut and come again, bread and butter type podiatry, I think you can be booked out way in advance. But if you're also saying, oh, but we also do biomechanical assessments and orthotics, but you're booked out a month ahead and the person can't get in, then maybe you don't really do biomechanics and orthotics. Maybe you should just keep doing the bread and butter type stuff, stay booked out. But I also think when someone tells me that their diary is booked out a month ahead and there is not one spot that someone can get in, what I usually say, what I hear when I hear that is, I don't know how to manage my diary properly.
Yeah.
Especially if they still want to get biomechanical patients.
Yeah.
And more interesting type work, but they go, but I can't fit them in. And go, well, you're not managing your diary properly.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, I don't see people advertising for cut and come again podiatry. What they end up advertising for is ingrown toenails, heel pain, verrucas, yeah. And patients don't want to wait weeks or months to have those things looked at. They want to get in sooner rather than later. So yeah, I think managing your diary is really important, and getting your fee structure right so that you do have gaps in your diary to service patients.
But
and there's nothing worse than having a patient come in that you see with a new problem, and then you go, oh, I need to see it again next week. Oh, I can't see you next week because I'm rammed up. So therefore you'll have to wait 3 weeks to see me. How is that good podiatry? If they need to see you in a week's time, they need to see you in a week's time.
Yeah, what was funny, I remember when I sold my practice, and yeah, at the time of selling, we were doing, like turning over well over $1 million a year, and practice was going great. And I remember when the guys came to have a look at buying it, and they said, oh, our only concern is we're looking at your diary, and when you look like 3 weeks ahead, you've got 2 patients booked in. I went, yeah, have a look 4 weeks ahead. There's probably no one booked in.
Yeah.
And, and they're going, how can you be turning over what you're turning over? Your diary is so quiet. I said, come back in 3 weeks and have a look at what the week looks like.
Yeah.
They come back in 3 weeks, and all of a sudden we had 25 new biomechanical patients booked in.
Yeah.
It was so busy. But then you look 3 weeks ahead, and we did have the odd regular patient that would book in. But that was, to me, that was how we managed our diet. But there might have been one particular podiatrist that may have been booked out a lot more solid because they did a lot more, say, general type podiatry. But the rest of us, the way that I managed and controlled the diary, it means I could get people in, we could do the treatment. Then there'd be certain times of a month where we'd be a lot busier, because this is when all the orthotic reviews for the year would be coming through at different times. So I really think diary management is a really important key to running a good practice and being a good podiatrist.
Absolutely. And of course, it comes back to that child or mother test that we talked about. Is if they had a painful foot problem, that could be just a corn, because generally it's some form of pain that's causing them to phone you up as a new patient, isn't it? They've got some issue. They don't have to sit there in pain for weeks on end. That actually you control your diary in such a way that you can give them a slot and also give them a follow-up slot if they need it. Not that, oh, well, I'll see you to get you out of your immediate pain, but then you're going to have to wait 3 months to be followed up, because that's not getting them onto the best treatment plan. And if you're so busy that you can't do that, then refer on to a colleague. Say, actually, I can't fit you in, but I know somebody else who can. So refer them on. But for me, it's just exactly the same with you, managing your diary properly so that you can offer good podiatry to your patients. It's the best thing that you can do.
Well, what's interesting is sold the practice. They totally changed the philosophy of how it was run and how the bookings were done and the type of marketing that they did. And I heard through the grapevine, not that I'd know because I'm not in the practice, but the clinic is now booked out sometimes 2, 3, a month in advance. And then now, so the diary looks really busy and it is chockers, and they're turning over less than half of what they did when they bought the practice. And I've gone, can you not see that how I had the system working? It worked well. You've changed it and now it doesn't work.
Yeah. So what they're after security, the security of knowledge that they've got patients booked in, rather than you were dealing with insecurity, as in thinking, I've got gaps there. But actually, you had great marketing systems in place to deliver you new patients. So your security came from your marketing systems. You knew those worked and they generate new patients for you. So you didn't have to be booked up because you knew you'd always fill it with new patients.
Yeah. And when you know that, and when you know how, when you know the pulse of your business, because I look at your business, it's like a living beast.
Yeah.
And we might get halfway through the month. We might have an expectation we're going to turn over X. And we're halfway through the month and we're not even at 50% of what I thought we were going to turn over. And I'd say to everyone, do not plan on taking a sick day over the next 2 weeks or holidays or ask me for a day. The next 2 weeks are going to be crazy, because I knew, because of the numbers, that these patients were going to be coming in. Yep. And the next 2 weeks, we would be flat out, and all of a sudden, bang, yep, we'd hit the target that I knew we were going to hit. And it was just the same thing, month after month after month. So I think good podiatry relates to having a good practice, having good management of your diary, having a good team, having a good marketing plan, and they all sort of just comes together.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly, I think it's trying to put yourself in the seat of the patient. I think that's really what it comes down to. Is what's the patient see of your practice from the outside, them looking in, rather than you on the inside looking out. What does it look like from the outside looking in? Are you going to be able to satisfy their needs, their expectations, and deliver what they want, what they need, in a professional, competent way?
Yeah, and I know about getting an appointment. Like my GP that I said is a very, very good GP, but he's also just a few years older than me, and he's sort of heading into retirement now. So he's really cut his days back. But because he does everything, he is booked out a fair way in advance. So a few times where I've been at kickboxing and I've had a slight injury, and I'm thinking, oh, I should go to the GP and get this checked out, and I can't get in. And I'm like, damn it, because I can't get in for 2 weeks. I can't wait 2 weeks. I'm in pain. I want to be seen now. So because it's a fairly large practice, they've got other doctors there. I've been able to see one of the other doctors, and eventually got back in to see him once, sort of been following it all up. But it is, and so I can imagine if you're a solo practitioner and you've got certain patients, and this is why I keep harping on, but you've got to manage your diary. So patients that do have an important problem, you can fit them in somewhere. Yeah. I think it's really important to be able to do that.
It's one of the things we do the Pod Seal Heals campaign annually in March each year. And one of the key things is, if you're going to do the campaign, make sure you've got some slots available for all these patients who are going to phone you up at the end of the campaign. No point running a campaign that you can say to patients, oh, I can't help you because I can't see you for 3 months. It's just, it's pointless marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's one of those things, whenever I'm doing like one-on-one coaching with somebody, and that's one of the questions I'll ask them. Okay, I wake up Monday morning, I had a huge weekend, bank holiday in the UK or something like that. Australia Day, what was it? What did we have this weekend? Anyway, we had a public holiday as well. So you've had a huge weekend camping with the family and dog, and you've been running around. Anyway, you get back home, Monday morning, you wake up and you go, oh my God, my heel is killing me. So you put up with it. Gets to Thursday, you get, nah, it's not getting any better. And you've all your friends at work and the butcher and the person down at the news agency said, you need to go and see a podiatrist. Really, there's one down the road here. I've heard they're good. You ring up. Yeah. They go, yeah, we can get you in 2 weeks from tomorrow. Or we can get you in next, a week's time. You're like, you know what? I don't want to wait a week. So then you're going to call somebody else. And coming back to the diary side of things, like my brother's a dentist. Every dentist I know has emergency appointment slots. Yeah. Throughout the day. Now, if someone doesn't book into them, that's great. They use them to catch up on paperwork, have a coffee, but they have those appointment slots. So someone with, say, heel pain, for example, can at least get in. Yeah. Even if it's a shortened visit, they go, we're going to book you into one of our emergency spots. They get seen. And at least from there, if it's really important, you can maneuver other patients around. You can ring Mary, who comes in and get her toenails cut every 6 weeks. Mary, can you come in the next day? Yeah, move her somewhere else or spread something out to make sure this treatment actually gets done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of my most common reviews I get is ingrown toenail patients who put up with their problem for a long time, haven't been able to get in anywhere to get it sorted quickly, whether that's NHS or other care, and they come to me and they get seen, they get their surgery done quickly, they get their follow-up, and they're sorted. You know, and I mean quickly, sometimes even following straight on after their appointment. You know, I'll book their new patient assessment at the end of the day if they're highly likely to go on to surgery, so I can just go straight into the surgery session with them rather than having to come back, and they're delighted with that because they put up with it, they've waited long enough, and I'm there delivering that responsive service, and it works really well for them.
Okay, so to get back to the main topic, what is good podiatry?
Yeah.
You think podiatrists listening to this should sit down and really go through that list of what I said earlier on. What do I love doing in podiatry? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? And what do I want to stop doing? And if there's if there's parts they want to stop, is then if you have podiatrists in the local area that you're friendly with, is go and have a coffee with them and ask them, what do you love doing? What do you want to do more of? What do you do less of? And what do you want to stop doing? You might find what they want to stop, you want to do more of, and what you want to stop, they want to do more of. And I think creating this network of podiatrists, but we should be becoming friends. And I sometimes find podiatrists are so competitive towards each other. Everybody hates each other. Hate's a strong word. Yeah, they don't play well together. There's a podiatrist up here in Cairns, Kyle, who, when I had my practice, was like probably the main opposition. And I remember we were at an event together and he was there. And this is like one of the earlier times that I met him. I said, Kyle, what we should be doing is between 8:30 to 5:30, we should be like cage fighters. Step into the cage, and our goal is, even if we're good friends, we're paid to flog the crap out of each other. My job is to win. Your job is to win. I said, but at 5:30, when we walk out of that cage, we should be adult enough to talk to each other, have a coffee. I said, there's no harm in doing that. And he went, yeah, that is so good to hear. Because some of these other people in town just don't like me.
No.
And I've always had a really good relationship with him when I had my practice, after selling the practice. And I had a coffee with him a couple of months back. And I think there needs to be more of that. And if I set another practice up tomorrow, which I'm not going to, I would still be friendly with him, because I think you need that. You need competition, because it keeps you all on your toes. But at the same time, you need to have a good working relationship with some of the podiatrists in your area.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember somebody podiatrist moved into my area, I don't know, 15 odd years ago now. And I wrote to them and I said, I'm just writing to introduce myself. I know how lonely it is working in private practice on your own in a small town. I said, it'd be great to grab a coffee, and happy to reach out and just chew the cud with you, and put on a friendly face and do exactly what you just said. Did I get a response? Did I ever hear of that person again? No. It just, and they're still practicing. They still don't reach out. They still don't refer patients, and there's still no close collaboration. And it's such a shame, because what happens is when you do it like you just explained, is actually you then both up your marketing game. And if you both up your marketing game, then more of the public hear about what podiatry can do and what good podiatry can do, and therefore the public then benefits. Yeah. So it's absolutely healthy to have competition like that, because you're both going to put in all the efforts necessary to make your business successful, and the only people who are going to benefit from that is going to be the public. Yeah,
well, I remember reading once, and I'm not sure if it was a rule in not our registration, but just like etiquette within the profession. And it was, if you moved into an area and there were already podiatrists there, was to go and introduce yourself. So because I'd set up a lot of clinics, every time I moved into a town, I would go out of my way. I'd make an appointment to go and see them. I would actually sit in their surgery and I would go face to face, say, hi, I'm Tyson and I'm setting up a clinic here. And this is what the emphasis of our business is going to be all about. And I never had a hassle doing that. My clinic in Cairns, over the period of having it, was probably about 13 podiatrists had entered town, had set up a business over a number of years. Not once did one of them ever even tell you that they're in town, it's sort of like, oh no, I don't want to say anything because I'm going to be really sneaky and just turn up.
Yeah, yeah.
Because and when I turn up, I'm going to have such a huge impact that
Yes.
that's why I'm keeping a secret. And every time another one opened up, we actually got busier, because I think the more podiatrists there are, the more people see the signs and they go, I should see a podiatrist. But
absolutely, they'll walk past the sign, especially these days. They'll look on Google then as podiatrists in the area.
oh yeah,
And who's number one? The one which has got the most reviews and the best SEO and the best marketing, and that will have been your clinic, won't it?
yeah. And then they go to websites and they look at websites. If you've got a website that is just dodgy, made by Dodgy Brothers Incorporated,
Yeah,
then they're going to look at that. And when they look at a professionally done website that looks like it was made sometime this decade, then they're going to go, it's not really hard to tell. Sometimes you don't even know why one website's better than another, but internally you just know there's something that just feels uncomfortable or tacky about one. So then you go on to the more modern place.
Absolutely, and it comes back to that giving up front, doesn't it? So I've got Damien's virtual podiatrist on my website.
All right,
Damien Goff's,
Damien Goff. We'll give a plug. Damien Goff from Virtual Podiatry. Go and check it out. Damien has been on this podcast as well, so just scroll through the episodes and you will find him. So there's your plug, Damien.
So absolutely, and I get several patients who get in touch and they go, thank you very much for that. I've looked on your website. I've found the solution to my problem. That's brilliant. And that's great for me, because I know when they get a problem that isn't solved by what the information that Damien puts out on that, they'll come to me. They're not going to go elsewhere, because they've already had value up front from me. They've had good podiatry without me even having to engage with them, just from the investment in my website.
Yeah, well, that was one on the webinar I did recently about why you should be having blogs on your website. And one of the benefits of that was people can come to your website, you can answer a question for them, and you're asking for nothing in return. And then when you keep giving value to patients, then when they think, okay, now I need to actually see somebody about this, if they've got good information from your website, then they're going to come and see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if they haven't spotted the information, somebody they know spotted the information, and when they're chatting about it over dinner or whatever, and they go, oh yeah, I've seen Tyson's clinic, or I've seen Jonathan's clinic, you ought to give them a shout, and they do. They don't then go hunting around. They'll just go to the person that's been recommended to them.
Okay, so to wrap up, Jonathan, you and I, we could have like a 3-hour episode. But I know people listening to this go, no, please don't give us a 3-hour episode. We could have the long road trip episode. Are you traveling for 3 hours? Put on this episode, and this will keep you entertained for 3 hours. Do you have a final point to wrap up with on this particular topic? What is good podiatry?
I think if you can avoid sitting there complacent that you offer the best podiatry, and just try and raise your game so you offer good podiatry across the board in every single interaction, I think that's going to serve you well. I think what happens is people sit there and think and believe they're offering the best podiatry, and nobody else can offer it as good as them. And I think that's where it falls down, really. I think there'll always be somebody who can do something better than you can. And actually, if you can just raise your game so you're offering good podiatry in every single interaction you have with every patient and every condition, and that might not be you looking after that patient, that might be somebody else looking after that patient, and spending the time discussing with the patient what it is that you offer, what is available for them, and how you'll help them access it, whether that's from you or from somebody else.
No, I think that's a really good point. And if you're listening to this now, you may be a very, very good podiatrist, and you're doing everything that Jonathan was talking about, and there's certain aspects of podiatry that you are really good at, and you might be good at all aspects. I know some podiatrists that are just bloody good at everything. So if that's you, kudos, tick. I think that's fantastic. But if there is an area that you're sort of like, maybe I'm lacking in this a certain spot, I think learn more and get better if you want to continue to do it, or find a friend. Find a podiatry friend, And sometimes it may not even be podiatry. Maybe it is someone outside the profession that might be able to treat that particular issue better. But I think refer on when you need to. But if you really are keen in a certain spot, then just go and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Jonathan. So thank you very much for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast once again. I'm sure you will be back at some stage again in 2021. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me once more. I hope everybody enjoys it again.
Oh, I'm sure they will. If they didn't enjoy it, what do I usually say? If you listen to this episode and you didn't enjoy it, you know what? Give yourself an uppercut, take 2 Panadol, go and have a lie down, and then come back and listen to it a second time. And you know what? I remember reading The E-Myth. And when the first time I read it, I went, this is the worst book I've ever read. It was shocking. I think, I don't have a pie shop. Why am I reading this rubbish? Then one day I was going on a flight and I said, okay, I'm going to let the book gods choose the book for me. So I stuck my hand in the bookshelf, just ripped one out, and it was E-Myth. I went, oh, Jesus, it's not what I wanted. But you know what? I said that I was going to let the book gods decide. So I sat down, took it on the plane with me, and I read it, and I was just bouncing off the walls. I went, my God, this is a good book. Almost as good as mine. No, just joking. Just joking. But I just went, my God, this is a good book. And so it's amazing how your thinking changes. So sometimes I believe you listen to an episode like this and you go, I'm not sure if I got anything from it. Come back to it in a month's time and listen to it a second time. And all of a sudden you will be a different person in a month. You'll be a different person in a year, and you will hear something different. And I do this. I listen to other podcasts over and over again. So that was my rant at the end there. I don't normally do that. So sorry, Jonathan. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, guys.